I'd like to begin this meeting of Bethlehem City Council for Tuesday, July 19. Will everyone please stand for the invocation to be given by Pastor Melvin Tatum of the Grace Deliverance Church. Please remain standing for the pledge to the flag, please.
Let us bow heads in word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I'm praying for our mayor and city council and our other government and community leaders in our city and surrounding areas. We bow our heads and thank you for your love. We pray that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for our leaders, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Savior. Help our leaders to lead and govern with integrity, and may that integrity guide them and keep them on track. One of our presidents prayed this prayer: make our leaders strong to do your work, willing to heed and hear your will, and write on their hearts these words. Use power to help people, for we are given power not to advance our own purpose, not to make a great show in the world, not a name. There is but one just use of power, and it is to serve people. Help us to remember it, Lord. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Walensky. Mr. DiGiacinto.
Present.
Ms. Dolan.
Present.
Mr. Evans.
Present.
Mr. Mallon. Mr. Reynolds.
Present.
Mr. Donchess.
Present. We have a citation honoring Mr. Ed Swartley that he's not here this evening, I believe, so we forward it to him. I want to welcome Acting Solicitor Kevin Kelleher today, and for Attorney Spadoni, who I hope is enjoying the weather in Alaska, since that's where he's vacationing. We will move to item 4, the approval of minutes for June 21, July 1, and July 5th. Any comments? Minutes stand approved. We will move to courtesy of the floor for public comment on an ordinance or resolution to be voted on by City Council this evening. Mr. Salzer, you did sign up for second courtesy, but there is an item that reflects a fire pumper. If that's what you want to address, or if your comments are related to the other issue, it would be the second courtesy. Second courtesy. Okay. Would anyone like to address City Council on the first courtesy on an issue that we'll be voting on this evening? Mr. Grubb?
Dana Grubb, 2420 Henderson Place. I want to reference bills 17 and 18. Hopefully you'll support them. And I've been around city government for about 45 years now, and I think it's I think we've reached almost a new low when council has to legislate how funding that comes into the city is going to be handled. And I think it's a shame, mainly for the residents of this city, that a very trustworthy relationship cannot exist between the administration and city council. And I want to applaud council for taking some of these steps, which you'll hopefully do, because I think these are the kinds of things that need to be accomplished in order to start taking this city out of some of the financial morass that we've been experiencing the last few years. In addition to that, you're going to be asked tonight to approve some resolutions for gaming funding through the county. And I'm just curious, I understand the ambulance, I understand the fire truck, but I'm a little befuddled by the city pursuing funding for the loop out of the gaming money at the county level. And I'm wondering if any sort of ridership data has been provided to council. I mean, I'm out and around the town pretty much, and those buses are pretty darn empty. And as a taxpayer, I'm really concerned, given the performance to date of that. And I understand with Steel Stacks opening, perhaps things will pick up, but have you gotten any sort of ridership data to base any kind of a decision on as council on this?
You want the administration to answer that now or at the end of your 5 minutes?
No, I'm finished. I mean, I was just curious whether any ridership data has been provided.
Mr. Mayor, any comments on that?
Have you seen the ridership data?
No.
No. We have it.
Well,
Let me make a general comment, though. I serve on Atlanta board, and I know there was discussions, maybe when I first came on the board in the beginning of the year, that, the city council took out of the 2011 budget, I believe, for $180,000, if I recall correctly. And then we had some discussion at one of the board meetings about the possibility of the loop because of Steel Stacks, Arts Quest, and just the whole development of that project, that maybe the increase in ridership would, maybe the ridership would increase with the loop. And so I could just speak on that.
I think it's ironic that with a nearly $9 million host fee, now we're going back looking for more money from the county out of the gaming funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on an ordinance or resolution that we'll be voting on this evening? If not, we will move into the agenda. Old business, members of council. We'll move into communications. Communications 7A, City Council Solicitor, Bills number 17-2011-18, 2011. Points 1 and 2 in Attorney Spinelli's memo pertains to Bill 17 and 18. Bill point 3 pertains to Bill 18. The amendments to Bills 17 and 18 that members of council have are proposed by Councilman DiGiacinto to have the funds deposited within 2 business days. The last paragraph in Attorney Spinelli's memo regarding Section 121.12A is not being considered this evening and will be reviewed with the administration and placed on a future City Council agenda.
And the memorandum from Attorney Spadoni advised that he has spoken with Tracy Rash of Mayor Dussel City Auditors. At the July 5th council meeting, council members questioned whether placing the revenues in the City Council's budget would be setting a precedent. Auditor Rash advised that it would be a precedent in the city of Bethlehem. Number 2, the placing of expenditures as to these referenced ordinances in the City Council's budget is not in violation of generally accepted accounting procedures as pertains to Bills 17 and 18. Ms. Rash suggested that Bill 18 amend the last sentence to read as follows: a separate bank account shall be created for the gaming local share unappropriated funds to be controlled by City Council under a line item in the City Council's budget, separated and segregated from all other monies.
Comments? Thank you. We'll move to 7B, Director of Planning and Zoning, Historic Preservation Plan Revisions.
A memorandum from Darlene Heller, Director of Planning and Zoning, attached to which are the revised pages to the preservation plan for the City of Bethlehem as discussed at the Community Development Committee meeting on June 28th. In the paragraph under Bethlehem Steel on revised page 3, the 5th line, the word implementation is used. Ms. Heller has confirmed that the word should instead read incremental as follows: varied tools are being implemented, including the tax incremental financing district, adoption of flexible zoning, and so on.
Comments? Resolution 11B is on the agenda this evening. We'll move to 7C, Police Commissioner declaring special condition, Music Fest 2011, increasing parking fines.
It is requested that a resolution be passed covering special event parking during Music Fest 2011 from 12 o'clock p.m. on Friday, August 5th through 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, August 14th. The special events parking districts will need to be extended to include areas on the south side as well as the north side. The north side special events parking area is proposed to include the same area as previous years. The south side special events parking area is as outlined in the memorandum from Police Commissioner Schiffer.
Comments? Resolution 11C is on the agenda. We'll move to 7D, City Solicitor, Use Permit Agreement for Public Property, Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, 2011, Bethlehem Veg Fest.
Attached is a proposed resolution and associated use permit agreement for council's consideration for review and appropriate action.
Comments? Resolution will be listed on the August 2nd agenda. 7E, City Solicitor, Use Permit Agreement for Public Property, Richard Scott Kelly. Has anyone seen my balloon, Inc.? Hot air balloon takeoff.
Attached is a proposed resolution and associated use permit agreement for council's consideration for review and appropriate action.
Comments? Resolution will be on the August 2nd agenda. 7F, Grants Coordinator, Northampton County Gaming Grant, Fire Engine, Ambulance, and Loop Operation.
Council's consideration is requested for 3 resolutions authorizing the submission of applications to the Northampton County Gaming Grant for partial payment of a fire truck to be stationed at the Schrader Firehouse, an ambulance, and support for the operation of the Loop Shuttle. It is requested that resolutions be placed on the July 19th agenda for review and consideration.
Comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
is this maybe appropriate time? I was one of the people who questioned the loop part of this thing, but is it appropriate now? Maybe we can ask.
I would say let's wait until we get to that item on the
I'd
agenda.
like to, Mr. Kelly, get a chance to talk about that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Resolutions 11F, G, and H are on the agenda. 7G, Director of Budget and Finance, General Fund and Non-Utility Fund Budget Adjustments for Fire Pumper and EMS Facility.
A memorandum from Mark Sivak, Director of Budget and Finance, listing adjustments that would be required to the general and non-utility capital budgets based on the Finance Committee's recommendations made at the June 27th meeting, amending Ordinance 2010-49, the EMS Facility and Fire Pumper. A budget account can be created in October 2011 once the third quarter host fee is received and it is known whether the host fee surpassed the budgeted amount for the year.
Comments? Resolution Bill 19 and Resolution 11I are on the agenda. We'll move the reports. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administrative Order Number 1361, I hereby reappoint Jim R. Fiorentino, 3464 Mountain View Circle, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, 18017 to the City Planning Commission. This appointment is effective through May 2016.
And the resolution to confirm is sponsored by Eric Evans and J. Gordon Reynolds.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
5-0 passes.
Administrative Order Number 1362, I hereby reappoint Mary Lou Cummings, 837 Tioga Avenue, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, 18018 to the Fine Arts Commission, and this reappointment is effective through July 2014.
And the resolution to confirm is sponsored by J. Gordon Reynolds and David DiGiacinto.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. DiGiacinto.
Aye.
Ms. Dolan.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Donchev.
Aye.
5-0 passes.
Thank you. We'll move to item 9. 9A, ordinances for final passage. Bill 17, amending ordinance 2010-49, EMS facility and fire pumper separate bank account. I ask the clerk to read Bill 17 on final reading.
Bill 17, an ordinance of the City of Bethlehem, Counties of Lehigh, and Northampton, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the tax ordinance for the year 2011, sponsored by Karen Dolan and Gordon Mauer.
I ask the clerk to read the amendment to Bill 17.
That the following paragraph in Section 1, which reads as follows: for the construction of an EMS facility and acquisition of a fire pumper, the sum of 7,500 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation. The sum of 7,500 mils on each dollar of assessed value shall be placed in a separate bank account to be controlled by City Council under a line item in City Council's budget, separated and segregated from all other monies, entitled EMS Facility Fire Pumper, and shall not be commingled with any other monies whatsoever. All disbursements from the EMS Facility Fire Pumper account shall be subject to City Council approval prior to disbursement to assure that these funds are utilized for the construction of an EMS facility and acquisition of a fire pumper only. Be amended to read as follows: for the construction of the EMS facility and acquisition of a fire pumper, the sum of 7,500 mils on each dollar of assessed value. The total dollar amount of the sum of 7,500 mils on each dollar of assessed value received for this purpose from the taxes for the year 2011, effective from January 1st, 2011, shall be placed in a separate bank account to be controlled by City Council under a line item in City Council's budget, separated and segregated from all other monies entitled EMS Facility Fire Pumper within 2 business days after passage of this ordinance, and shall not be commingled with any other monies whatsoever. All disbursements from the EMS Facility Fire Pumper account shall be subject to City Council approval prior to disbursement to assure that these funds are utilized for the construction of an EMS facility and acquisition of a fire pumper only, sponsored by David DiGiacinto and Eric Evans.
Any questions on the amendment? Any questions on the amendment? Ms. Nolan?
I have a few questions. The procedural as to how this would work. To have a separate bank account, does that mean that there's a separate account separate from other city accounts, or it's a line item, or a on paper it says it's a separate account, but it's not actually a separate account with its own account number, etc. How will that work in reality?
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Well, I can probably answer that. I think it is intended to be a separate bank account that will be set up by the city clerk's office with the help of the administration in a bank that they choose, so that the transfers can be made easily. And it is also going to be a separate line item accounted for in the council budget, so both.
Okay, and then to withdraw money from that account, would that account be set up to require, for example, a signature of the finance director and the signature of city council president, for example? It
Mr.
would or it
DiGiacinto?
wouldn't?
Yeah, I think we would, like to have the city clerk probably as a signator, and perhaps either I would say the president of the city council, the chair of the finance committee. In either case, the money has to be approved, correct? So before it's transferred out.
Correct.
Well,
Mr.
I'm
Wright?
just trying to be practical. If it has to be approved, I mean, in reality, normally, there really aren't separate accounts. There's an account and then there's separate accountings. I'll wait.
Mr. Riker, comment?
I'll wait if they need to figure something out. Okay. Sometimes in my little business, you actually have to have a separate account. A grant will come through and you'll have to have a separate account. You have to open an account. And then there are other times where you have to keep a separate accounting. There's a very big difference. So a separate account means there's a checkbook, or and certain people have to sign it, and you get separate bank statements, and then the signatories really make a big difference. A separate accounting means that you need to keep track of those funds, and if at any time that grantor, which you can imagine as us in a sense, says, I need to see where that you've got that money. I don't care if it's the original dollar bills that we sent you or not, but do you have the $10,000 that we gave to you to do this particular job? And a separate accounting, to me, doesn't seem to be what you're looking for. You're looking for a separate account.
I think we're talking about the full finance committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, the finance committee is looking for a separate account. And that, I think that that's what you're looking for. That means what it says. It means a separate account, a different number for an account. It means probably, I don't know what it would be, a checking account. What would be the mechanism for drawing down money from that account?
This would be good questions for the finance committee. This is not really the administration's idea. We're not against it, but we're not proposing it either, so.
Mr. Reynolds?
Just to remind, to go back in history a little bit, the original idea was suggested by President Donchos, and then it was amended at the Finance Committee, and the idea about placing it in a separate account by City Council actually came from Mr. Riker, who had said, it doesn't matter to us, if it makes you feel better, you can put it in your own account. So as far as that is concerned, I mean, that's where it came from, okay? So as far as the actual administration of this is concerned, I would think that was not something that was discussed at Finance Committee. I'm not sure if since it was Mr. Doncha's original idea, whether or not he had a comment for that. I'm not sure if another member of the Finance Committee did. At the same time, it was made pretty clear that this money was going to go into City Council's account and was not going to be spent without the approval of City Council. Other than that, I mean, that's what's been decided so far. It was going to be placed into a separate bank account. We asked Mr. Sivak or Mr. Riker, and they said the fees for a year would be like $100 or whatever, a nominal fee. But as far as that money being taken out, it's something that City Council would have to approve. Other than that, I'm guessing it would be the same process by which money is usually spent.
So we would be invoiced?
Yeah.
I don't really think that the Finance Committee necessarily is really the one to answer this question. I really think that they have an idea, but yet the mechanism would have to be suggested by the administration. And I'll give you an example. The bill comes in for some aspect of the EMS building. Contractor invoices you. Does that invoice then come to City Clerk or President Donchez, and he then writes the check, co-signed by you, and then the money is given to the city? If it's a separate account, it would have to be accessed through City Council. I'm just being practical here, and it seems like
Maybe
that's
it's
the way to
impractical
accomplish
to do
it.
it the way that you're doing it. I don't know. This is new territory for all of us. This is not typically how invoices and bills are dealt with. There's not generally separate City Council accounts for things. So, I mean, at some level, all dollars in the budget, all dollars spent by the city are approved on an annual basis by council and put in different line items. So this is an added, I guess, level of assurance that council is seeking for these particular dollars, that they're putting them under City Council in the budget for City Council. But I guess it would be handled like any other PO or any other. It would be, we have to evaluate whether the bill is accurate, whether it's the right invoice, and go on from there. But we still have a treasurer, we still have a controller, who still have to be signatories to all as they do on every other bill that comes to the city. If the council wants to override that too, maybe they have a different mechanism they have in mind.
I think practically speaking, if, and I'll use the fire pumper, that's an easy one. That's probably not likely to be purchased this year, maybe next year.
Can't buy half a pumper.
But if you buy the fire pumper, and we all agree that the fire pumpers that we bought, the $250 grand that's associated with the fire pumper could move right over to the city all at once. If we got, jumping ahead, we talked gaming share. As far as gaming share, the unappropriated funds, if the business administrator or Mark Sivak said, hey, look, here is the things we need to use the unappropriated funds for, much like we have set up now, we agree, council agrees to move the money, we transfer it over in total, and the city uses the money appropriately. I don't see us dealing with vendors. I don't see us dealing with invoices. I think there's going to be an easy way to handle these two particular occasions, these two situations, I should say. The EMS building, once we get to that point in time, we're not there yet. I think if we decide to build a new EMS building, then at that point in time, when we feel comfortable that is what the direction is of the city, I would have no problems at that time considering moving the money over in total, knowing that it's going to be spent against the EMS building. That's the way I look at it from a practical perspective, but not on a by invoice basis in these two cases.
And just to add to what Councilman Di Giacinto said, I would concur there too. It was my expectation, at least in the Finance Committee, is that we wouldn't be looking at individual like, oh, this concrete's going to cost this and so on and so forth. They were, I mean, if whatever money we ended up spending here, if we spend any of it, would come down to them, to someone coming forth to us saying, we want to spend this much money, this is how much it's going to cost, this is gonna cost, 1.1 million, so on and so forth, and then we approve it, and then we transfer the money over. But and once again, I don't want to speak for Mr. Evans or Mr. DiGiacinto, even though it sounds like what he said is the same thing I'm saying, is that we would likely approve the transfer in total rather than dealing with vendors or individual contracts or things like that. That was never something that was discussed at the Finance Committee, and I don't think that was ever the intent of another member of the Finance Committee, or I don't think Mr. Donchis, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Well, I would agree with what Mr. Reynolds just said and Mr. DiGiacinto, and every transfer would have to be approved by City Council. And I think as far as the signatures go, it would just be appropriate to have the clerk, the chair of finance, and the City Council president sign it.
So that would be the real control, would be that the money could not be removed from the account without the signature of someone.
Without the approval of City Council and then the signatures.
Which is a signature. So first the approval would come, and then the transfer would come with the signatures from whatever bank account this is
I
held
would say
in.
that's probably correct.
Has there been any thought to what kind of account would be appropriate?
Mr. DiGiacinto?
Definitely in the same bank, right next to whatever accounts the business administrator uses to pay his bills. It could be interest bearing, I think. Nothing more than that.
Okay. So the big difference, which would provide definite, I would think, an increased level of control over those funds. And that's important because we link it to a tax increase.
Right.
I think that's probably what most of the people in the
They're
Finance
key here.
Committee are thinking. Okay, I had put those procedural questions, and I guess it would be, I think it would be a good idea to get that written out, even though it sounds simple, to make sure that it's in writing at some point, what the procedure would be. For example, let's say that sort of big bill for the EMS building comes through. What would be then the time frame between when the money was transferred and when ground was broken or something like that?
Once the commitment is made to build, I would say we move the money over. We talk about it, move the money over.
As soon as it's
Yeah,
needed?
as soon as it's needed.
Okay,
And again, it would come to the Finance Committee
sure.
for their approval.
Okay, all
You
right.
can't enter into a contract.
Mr. Mayor?
You cannot enter into a contract with a contractor or a vendor unless the dollars are there. The controller will not allow us to enter into contracts unless the money is sitting in the account.
So would
So
it,
the money would have to be transferred prior to us entering into any contracts with any vendors or contractors for anything, whether it be a pumper truck or whether it be the money has to be there. Now, whether we then turn around and we then wait for the invoice and wait for the work to get done, there's sometimes contracts set up with a partial payment when they meet certain benchmarks in the course of the project, but that's, and if you want, you could have council evaluate that and they could figure out whether we've met the benchmarks and they could decide if they want to write the check or not.
I think it sounds as if council is not being quite that picayune in defense of my colleague.
I'm just
Well,
suggesting that council can get
to break
involved
it
as much, to
down.
whatever extent they wish to be involved.
Well, council thanks you for the trust, but we don't want to, I don't want to see us step out of our role too much more than perhaps this already is. I think, I'm concerned about the precedent, but if it isn't really going to be much more than is a separate account and it gets signed off, it's not just a vote and then a paper transfer, which is, dollars don't really move around, they just move around on paper. And but this would be different, there really would be dollars in an account, actual dollars. And it sounds as if the members of the Finance Committee are yes, they're taking a hard line on this. It's connected to a tax increase, but at the same time, I don't sense a desire to be, obstructive. I think what could happen, and I'm curious about that with your comment about the contractors, because if a contractor sees that the money is in an account that is still a city account, and it says it's EMS money, or it's designated in some way, why would they look at that as any different, or would they look at it as any different than if it was in the Nuki, for example, I mean, if it's money and they know they're gonna get it and it's designated specifically, is there any, what, would a contractor not agree to a contract because it's in a council-controlled account?
Mr. Riker, any comment?
Does that mean, no, you don't think it would be a problem, or no, you don't think it would be a problem? Okay.
Any other questions? I ask the clerk to call the roll on the amendment. On the
No,
amendment.
I'm sorry, so when you say the amendment, you mean
We're,
taking out the
Cindy, correct me if I'm in error here, but this would be an amendment to Bill 17 sponsored by Mr. DiGiacinto that we just discussed.